Hello and welcome to this presentation discussing the upcoming operating system upgrade for Tatos Incorporated. Now, the higher-ups at Tatos have decided that it would be best if the company switched from Windows 10 to Ubuntu Linux. Well, while that seems like a pretty big change, there are a lot of good reasons for doing this. Ubuntu Linux, for one, is free and open source, whereas Windows is not. There's been talk that Windows 11 is going to go to a subscription model, which would prove very expensive for the company, and they can't stick with Windows 10 because Microsoft is charging Windows 10 users for keeping it on their system while they're trying to sunset it. So each year, Microsoft charges Windows 10 users more and more, so they upgrade to Windows 11. Ubuntu also requires less resources to run compared to Windows 11, so it does not put as much of a strain on the computer, and it can free up some computational power for doing other things. Lastly, the Ubuntu environment and desktop is similar enough to Windows that there is not a large learning curve, so anyone who's been used to using Windows for a long time can pretty easily get the hang of Ubuntu. Ubuntu is a well-established OS that's been around since about 2004. It also holds roughly 2.2 or thereabouts percent of the OS market share, and it's well established enough that there are really no major compatibility issues with the applications that Tatos needs to run on its company computers. Another OS that was considered was Debian, which is also a Linux distribution. The only problem with Debian is that while, like Ubuntu, it's not that hard to get the hang of for Windows users, it is much harder to install, so that would put a lot more work on the IT team, and I think it does require some more knowledge just to use. So while it also wouldn't be a bad option, the learning curve would be a bit too steep. So there is a timeline for this upgrade. The goal is to get this whole thing done within about 6 months, maybe a little bit more if there are any issues that need to be ironed out. So for the first 2 weeks of the upgrade, this is when the IT team will go around to all the different departments in the company, and they will take inventory of the computers in that department and the specs those computers are running. And this is to see if there are any theoretical compatibility issues with running Ubuntu. So basically just checking to see if there are any hardware limitations. For the third and fourth week, these weeks will be used to train the IT team. Ubuntu has helpfully provided online documentation for how its operating system works, and there are a lot of different guides that show you how to do most things that any user would need to do on the operating system. So, on each one of these 10 days, the IT team will study one of those 10 guides. Well, excuse me, there's 9 total guides, and then on the 10th day, that's going to be a research day for whatever they think that they need to know. So the first day will be the install guide, then the Your Desktop guide, then the Sound and Media guide, and so on. These guides are not that long, but that's intentional. We want the IT team to be able to do this on top of their normal work. The next 3 weeks, weeks 5 to 7, are going to be used to test Ubuntu. So what the IT team is going to do is they're going to go around to all the departments in the company and install Ubuntu on just 1 or 2 computers to make sure that there's no hardware issues. If there are, the proper upgrades will be made, and hopefully They will have found any issues during the inventory phase, but just in case, they're going to check in these 3 weeks. If there are multiple different models of computers in a department, they will install Ubuntu on the weaker computer, because if it runs on the weaker computer, it'll also run on the stronger one. The next 3 weeks, weeks 8 to 10, these will be used to make backups of all the company data. So each department will back up all at once at a time, and there will be a network attached storage server set up just for this purpose, and it will be running RAID 1. So as soon as a department puts its data on that server, it will be automatically duplicated to minimize the risk of loss or corruption. The next part is user training. So all the normal employees will be trained over the lunch period in the meeting room. Because the meeting room at Tatos is not that big, there will be 3 groups of employees to be trained at a time, and there will be 2 seminars a day. So the first seminar will be just going over the generics of the OS and discuss the reasons of why this upgrade is happening. So Group 1 will watch the seminar first, and Group 2 will watch the seminar after them. And that's the structure for the rest of the week. So for day 2, they'll go over the file system. For day 3, they'll go over the App Store and show how to install apps. Day 4, they'll talk about settings and discuss the employee login information that all the employees will be given. And on day 5 will be an open question day. The next week is just for Group 3 because it's only one group. They'll watch 2 seminars a day. So day 6, which is the first day of the second week, they'll go over the OS, the reasons for the upgrade, and the file system. Day 7 will be going over the App Store and app installation and settings, and then day 8 is an open question day. Weeks 12 through 20, this is the rollout phase, and this is the most important stage. So after all the previous steps have been completed, and the IT team has gotten the testing computers from weeks 5 to 7 up and running, they will install all the necessary apps onto the testing computers and then make a clone of the operating system and its apps on bootable, removable media, and then they will go around to the rest of the company and use that bootable media to upgrade all of the computers in the rest of the company. So this is the more detailed version of that plan. So weeks 12 and 13 will be the first 3 departments. Now, 3 departments in 2 weeks might seem like a lot, but these are the 3 departments with the fewest computers. So it should not be that much. And because Ubuntu was cloned with all the applications already installed, getting this up and running should not take long. So for weeks 14, 15, that'll be the administrative department and shipping and receiving. And then we go to the even bigger departments, which was finance, and then start the upgrade on the main processing floor. And then weeks 18, 19 is dedicated to just the main processing floor because it is by far the largest department. In the last week, the IT department will upgrade themselves, and we had them do themselves last, just to make sure they can get everyone else up and running before they make any changes. There has been an example VM built to see or to demonstrate what the company computers will look like. This VM was made with 4 gigabytes of RAM and just 1 virtual processor. And these specs best replicate the weakest computer in the company, which I believe is in the shipping and receiving department. They have some older machines, so 4 gigabytes of RAM and 1 virtual processor best replicates those weakest computers ability. And these are all the resources used to put together this plan. Now it is time for the VM, which is right here. Alright, so once it logs in, this VM, as discussed before, is running 4 gigabytes of RAM and 1 virtual processor to best replicate some of the weaker computers that Tatos Incorporated is running. So here we are into the loaded into the Ubuntu environment. And while it looks a little different than Windows, it does not take a lot of getting used to. So all the standard settings are up here in the top right corner, as opposed in the bottom right where the taskbar normally is on a Windows machine. But all the same stuff is here. You got your internet settings, your power settings, volume, stuff like that. The toolbar is by default on the left instead of the bottom, and it functions similarly to a Windows taskbar. So a few of these apps do come pre-installed. Firefox comes pre-installed with Ubuntu. It is Ubuntu's web browser of choice, and it is the one that Tatos will be using unless users would like to install another. But here's Firefox. It has not been set up to have a default web page yet, and it'll probably have its default set to the Tatos web page. So that's Firefox. Also is the email client of choice for Ubuntu is going to be Thunderbird Mail. So here's Thunderbird Mail that needs to be set up with someone's new Tatos email address. LibreOffice Writer and LibreOffice Calc. I installed both of those on this VM. For some Linux distributions, LibreOffice comes pre-installed. It just so happens that Ubuntu is not one of them. But LibreOffice is going to be the text editor of choice for Tatos Incorporated, and it's fairly similar to Word in its capabilities, and LibreOffice Calc is just the spreadsheet creator that is in the same product suite. So here we go. Here's LibreOffice, pretty similar to most standard word processors. Also this is a pre-installed app. This is called the text editor. This is a very basic one. You can use this just for taking notes or, just jotting stuff down, but it is much more limited in its functionality when compared to LibreOffice. Also, for communication between departments or just quick messaging, Slack is also installed on all Tatos computers. This is not a pre-installed application, but it does not take up a lot of space. And this, again, is what the departments will use to just schedule meetings, have virtual meetings, and talk to each other if they don't use email. So again, to recap, Firefox and this text editor both come pre-installed, and then Thunderbird Mail, that's been installed after the OS. This is what Tatos will be using for mail. LibreOffice Writer will be the text editor. LibreOffice Calc will be used for any spreadsheet stuff that needs to be done. Slack is the app installed just for quick communication between departments, and then the default text editor that comes pre-installed with Ubuntu. This will just be used for any quick notes that any user might want to write down. So, hope you enjoyed this presentation of what the Ubuntu environment will look like for Tatos Incorporated.